Hello, and thanks for taking a moment to check out my video. Today we're going to take a look at the events that led up to a battle between the Russian and German cavalry divisions at the Polish city of Konin on the 8th of November of 1914. I hope you find it interesting as we take a look at the different viewpoints of the participants and try and understand what happened and learn about what people's experiences were. So let me start with what the situation was. The battle that we're looking at occurred after the Battle of the Vistula River, which was also known as the Battle of Warsaw, that took place during the month of October of 1914. In that particular back-and-forth battle east of the Vistula River, the Central Powers ended up retreating back to the west bank of the Vistula and beyond. As a result of this defeat, General Oberst Paul von Hindenburg was given command of the German forces in the east. The German Ninth Army, under General August von Mackensen, was positioned in front of the border between Poland and the German state of Silesia. Russian radio messages had been intercepted by the Germans, and after decoding, they revealed that the Russians were planning on invading Silesia on the 14th of November. Hindenburg and Ludendorff decided not to meet this attack head-on, but to seize the initiative by shifting their Ninth Army north by railway to the border area south of the German fortress of Thorn, where they would be reinforced with 2 corps transferred from the 8th Army. The enlarged Ninth Army would then attack the Russian right flank as they advanced. In 10 days, the Ninth Army was moved north by running 80 trains a day full of troops and equipment. At the same time, General Konrad von Holzendorff, the Austrian-Hungarian commander, would transfer the Austrian Second Army from the Carpathians to take over the German Ninth Army's former position. On the Russian side, General Nikolai Ruzhkoy had recently assumed command of the Russian Northwest Army Group defending Warsaw. Ruzhkoy had under his command General Paul von Rudnikoff's Russian First Army, most of which was on the right bank of the Vistula River, with only 1 corps positioned on the left bank. Ruzhkoy also directed the Russian Second Army under General Sergei Mykolaievich Schiedemann, which was positioned in front of the city of Lodz. Both armies were still in summer clothing, and the Russians were short of artillery ammunition. Let's take a look at the geography and see why it was important. World War I in the East was defined by the geography of the region, specifically by rivers, since they were wide and deep enough to form natural barriers to the movement of troops. In this case, after the Battle of the Vistula, the Central Powers retreated behind the Warta River. The Warta River in this area is between 50 and 150 meters wide and generally 3 to 6 feet deep, and rarely got as deep as 9 feet. The main defensive lines were about 30 miles apart, but we should keep in mind that that doesn't mean that the area between was empty of forces. In the corner between these two fronts was an area of relatively few troops, which was the realm of the cavalry. On the Russian side were 2 cavalry groups. There were 4 divisions under General Charpentier and 3 cavalry divisions under General Novikov. Opposite them was a German cavalry corps under General von Frommel, made up of the German 5th and 8th Cavalry Divisions, as well as the Austro-Hungarian 7th Cavalry Division. Screened behind Frommel was the Posen Corps, which was made up of infantry from the fortress of Posen. Frommel's challenge here was to cover 60 miles of front, of which 25 miles of it were not even protected by a river. Leading up to the battle, both cavalry groups from both sides were sending out normal patrols in the area, which resulted in clashes between these patrols. For example, Russian Colonel P.M. Maslov reported the following incident. In his words, "Moving to Kostelec with the task of occupying it, the regiments of the division left Brudzew and walked along different roads. Under the 1st Kaparsky Regiment, there was a brigade commander, Major General Gorchakov. The terrain was wavy. The vanguard reported that to the right of the regiment, along the hollow, there was a German infantry unit that was moving in our direction. The regiment commander, together with the brigade commander, climbed the hill and became convinced that a company of German infantry were in the process of attacking. The brigade commander suggested that the commander of Cossacks should attack the Germans. At the head of the regiment was the 5th Hundred. The regiment commander called the commander of the 5th Hundred and ordered him to attack the enemy. Centurion Isal Ilian, having examined the terrain and the moving German company, spread his unit into a charge and flew like a whirlwind at the enemy. The Germans, seeing the Russian Cossacks, lay in a ditch and opened strong fire on the charging Cossacks. The 100 continued to rush with lightning speed. Then, bending their flanks, the Cossacks flashed their sabers and began to cut the Germans. At this moment, the German company commander blew a whistle and ordered his men to surrender. The Germans, as one, knelt down and raised their hands. The whole company and 2 officers were captured. 4 Cossacks were injured in the process. For a dashing attack, the unit was awarded the St. George Arms. The assistant cornet, Larionov, the Order of St. Vladimir with swords and a bow, and 12 Cossacks of the unit received St. George's Cross. Soon afterwards, a song appeared in the regiment glorifying the Cossacks for this attack near Kostelski in October of 1914. Meanwhile, on November 5th, the German 5th Cavalry Division, which was recently arrived from the Western Front, was combined with the 7th and 8th Cavalry Divisions under Bavarian General Rudolf von Frommel, and charged with screening the Dusan Brigade that was approaching from the west as part of the Posen Corps. In the case of the 5th Cavalry Division, adjustments need to be made compared to the way that they operated in France. General Maximilian von Posen explains. The reconnaissance squadron of the 5th Cavalry Division, which was the 4th Dragoon Regiment under Rittmaster von Gizicki, had provided valuable updates from our opponents. Their significant losses of 2 officers, 2 under-officers, and 16 dragoons showed that in the east it is necessary to make the reconnaissance detachments significantly stronger than in the west. Therefore, only reconnaissance detachments with a strength of several squadrons of 170 men each, with artillery and a radio station, should be dispatched, and the patrol should be strengthened up to the strength of a Zug, which was about 40 men. Rittmeister von Gizicki himself reported as follows. The squadron's lack of experience in fighting the Russians cost them heavy losses. The Russians in their reconnaissance distributed in a force of 50 to 60 men in a small space, so that several detachments could quickly work together. The German patrols have a maximum of 15 to 20 men who are spread out, so that they almost always had to meet superior opponents. It so happened that the German patrol leaders, inspired by the urge to move forward, often underestimated the strength of the enemy, who was extremely skillful in the field, and as a result suddenly saw themselves surrounded by several Russian cavalry detachments, and either fell in an honorable fight or were caught without first having the opportunity to fight or attack. Here I think we should note that the Russians had advanced infantry and cavalry units operating on the left of the west bank of the Varta River, but that their support was limited by the bridge crossings that were in place. On November 6th, Russian Brigade General Stefan Strzeziemensky reported that after the occupation of the city of Kolo on October 21st, the regiments of the Caucasian Cavalry Division moved towards Turek. On October 24th, units of the division occupied the city after a decisive battle, and the Germans retreated in the direction of Konin. The division moved without rest, not stopping in cities, and was occupied with battles for more than 2 days, and we consider the time when its units were on watch to be rest. Given the fall of the city of Turek, the German command ordered that the Brigade Dusan to pull back, and the 5th Cavalry Division to cover their left flank against a potential attack from Turek. November 7th, the Russian forces from Turek, which was cavalry reinforced with infantry, were observed to be moving back north, so the 5th Cavalry Division was ordered to engage them, although no contact appears to have been made. In the afternoon, Russian cavalry from the Caucasian Cossack Division were reported in Vladislav, north of Turek. Their existence there was endangering the rail transport of the 9th Army, which I mentioned earlier. As a result, the Cavalry Corps Frommel was ordered to shift even further north. In doing so, they found their geography was making this movement difficult. In the evening, they arrived in an area of poor forest with deep sandy paths, where the artillery lost a number of horses. General Vladimir Solishchenko, who was a temporary commander of the Russian 2nd Army Corps, reported of actions on the 7th and 8th of November 1914. We were moving west over the Varta River in Kolo. At the crossing, we met resistance of German infantry, and in order to capture the crossing, General Charpentier turned to the head of the vanguard, who was Colonel Vladimir Romanovich Romanov, commander of the 172nd Leda Infantry Regiment, with a request to allocate 1 battalion and a battery to accomplish this task. I gave permission and Kola was taken. The defenders were Landsturm forces, 1 battalion without artillery. But on leaving, they burnt the bridge, and our cavalry could not cross to the other side. And therefore, having received information from our intelligence that Konin's bridge across Varta was intact, they decided to go there. And once again, asking for my permission, they took with them a battalion of the 172nd Leda Infantry Regiment and a battery of the Finland Artillery Division. Frankly, this permission was given reluctantly, understanding well that in difficult times using their mobility, the cavalry would leave and abandon the infantry. So it happened. On November 8th, the weather was foggy with heavy rain. When the strength of the Russian cavalry was split into 2 groups, it put Frommel's corps in a difficult position. To the south was a cavalry corps Novikov, who were west of the Varta River and in action across the line between Dobra and Varta. In the north, they were threatened to be outflanked by the Caucasian Cossack division south of Konin. Operating on interior lines, the Cavalry Corps Frommel had to attack each of these 2 separate hostile groups in rapid succession with the strongest possible efforts on their part to individually defeat them. General von Frommel therefore decided to first go after the northern opponents. The Austro-Hungarian 7th Cavalry Division was at Morowin, and the Brigade Dusan was moving north, leading out of the line Sieradz to Dobra, while the 8th Cavalry Division was at the Zbirsk roads of Turek, heading towards Malinov and Pintno, and the 5th Cavalry Division was at Reichswald, leading on to Kolo and Konin. Behind them, they left the 7th Cavalry Truppen Division, with elements of the other divisions, against Novikov's units. Vincenti Grickiewicz, a teenager in Konin, described that before dinner, strong patrols of Russian dragoons burst into the city from 3 sides, followed by a large cavalry unit. Soon, from the east, along the Kolska road, the entire Cossack cavalry division, with a light artillery division, began to move quickly through the city toward the bridge on the Varta. Grickiewicz continues this passage very vividly, which he probably watched from the windows of the family house, which was located on Jluga Street, which is today Maja Street, near the intersection with Kolsky and Zagrodsky roads. Cossacks, almost everyone of fair heights, drove through the city on small ponies, fully armed, and in efficient regimental formations. It was simply unbelievable that such small horses could bear the weight of such big men, and that the streets of the city would run so briskly. There were cases that the great Cossack was not lacking so much that he could reach the street with his feet. This impressive journey lasted almost an hour, and the entire cavalry division, along with the artillery division, passed over the makeshift bridge on the Varta, heading north towards the village of Sarkov. What Grickiewicz didn't see at this time was that an additional column of troops and artillery, detailed by General Solisarenko, was also approaching the city from the north. So what was the German plan? The 8th and the 5th Cavalry Divisions, under the commander of the 5th Cavalry Division, who was General Lieutenant Fritz von Unger, should attack and defeat the Caucasian Cossack Division reported to be in Konin. For this purposes, the 8th Cavalry Division, which was without the 38th Cavalry Brigade and the 2nd Jaeger Company and 1 battery, was at Tolishkov, and the 5th Cavalry Division was at Dembroshian, just north of Richkal. The 8th Cavalry Division should, advancing over Zdary to Zeitlin, attack in the direction of Konin from the southeast and east, and by an encircling movement drive the enemy to retreat eastward and toward Kolo. The 5th Cavalry Division should, advancing in 2 columns on Staromesto and Stasvak, attack from the southwest and west of Konin. Vincenti Grickiewicz continued. The residents of Konin also heard louder sounds of rifle shots, which meant that the fighting was approaching the city. Less than an hour after the Cossack cavalry passed from the south to north, a Russian infantry battalion from the north ran up to the bridge, urged on by company commanders who rode in front of them on horseback. Poor soldiers, tired and sweaty after a murderous march, were led by their commanders to the western and southern suburbs of the city to stop the advancing German infantry troops. Grikiewicz also observed the allocation of troops from his window. At the Evangelical Church, the Russian commanders separated the battalion. 2 companies came along today's Pogona Street, the 3rd started along the Kaslitz route, and the 4th headed west along the Zegorovsky route. It was also then that the first German cannon shot was fired, which hit the tower of the Evangelical Church. The shell hit the wooden window shutters of the tower, and clouds of black smoke emerged from its interior, and we were worried that it was burning. But after a while the smoke cleared, and the tower emerged from underneath it, with only the window broken. German artillery responded to Russian cannon in Sarkov, which is just across the river to the north. We could clearly distinguish between German and Russian cannon shells in our apartment. The first, with a flash and with a terrifying grinding sound, ripped over the city, including our yard, and the second, with a loud whistle, flew from the north over the city. Because the city is located in the Varta Valley, quite low, and the artillery shelled it with shrapnel fire, no major damage was done to the town. Meanwhile, the 5th Cavalry Division had advanced on both sides of the road between Reichswall and Konin. The 1st Company of the 32nd Infantry Regiment under Major von Leppel had the same road on its left, along the line between Stavsk and Starymaisto. The 11th, 12th, and 9th Cavalry Brigades attacked the strong riflemen and numerous machine guns that occupied Konin. Around noon, the attack was prepared by our supporting artillery, which came to within 1,000 meters of the southern edge of town. 2 Russian batteries were firing back from the heights beyond the Varta. The 2nd Company of the Saxon Jaeger Battalion had, by 1:20 in the afternoon, attacked from Zyklin against Konin, and got there by around 2:20 in the afternoon, simultaneously with the 5th Cavalry Division. From Grikiewicz, we know that the Russian command post was located in the house opposite the Church of St. Bartholomew, and kept in touch with the fighting companies via messengers on bicycle. Von Prozet continued. On the extreme left wing, the 9th Cavalry Brigade, led by Oberstleutnant Graf von Bredow, who was commander of the 10th Ulan Regiment, made a rapid decision and led his riflemen along the Varta River to the western edge of Konin, while 2 squadrons, the 5th Squadron of the 4th Dragoon Regiment under Rittmeister von Reinersdorf, and the 5th Squadron of the 10th Ulan Regiment under Rittmeister Leitzenbrüchen, attacked on horseback, galloping in toward the northern part of the town, behind the defenders located in front of the Varta River Bridge, while the 1st Company of the 32nd Infantry Regiment, on the signal of "Mount bayonets" and "Charge forward," stormed the southern edge of Konin, after which the enemy's resistance soon collapsed. The attackers invaded from all sides. From the southeast, the Saxon Jaeger Battalion of the 8th Cavalry Division, and from the east side of town, a Zug of the 4th Squadron of the Leibkürassier Regiment under Lieutenant von Heidebrand charged into the village. Also, the staff of General Lieutenant von Unger even joined the street fighting. Once again, Grikiewicz was witness to some of this. A Russian machine gun had been set up in front of the Lutheran church. In response to the murderous fire of the Russian machine gun, the Germans immediately set up 2 heavy machine guns on the sidewalks on both sides of Zagorovska Street. After a short exchange of machine gun fire, 2 Russian servicemen were killed. Only the gunner remained. The moment the lone shooter stopped firing to load a new ammunition belt, a German cavalry unit, hidden behind their own machine guns in the neighboring garden, jumped out onto the street and began charging toward the crossroads. However, the Russian gunner managed to put in a new belt, and greeting the charging Germans with a murderous rate of fire, 3 times he stopped to load a new belt of cartridges. It was only a German infantry patrol that burst out from Pogonia Street to the rear of the Russian machine gun nest that put an end to the life of the heroic shooter when he was shot in the back. The 8th Cavalry Division, whose 23rd Cavalry Brigade was already greatly fatigued when they arrived at the rendezvous due to their wide marching route, were stopped by enemy resistance at Zederi and Zyklin. In Zederi, the Saxon Royal Guard Heavy Cavalry Regiment was sent along with a platoon of machine guns to an area east of Telishkov. as flank protection against reported enemy cavalry near Vladislavov. The 8th Cavalry Division therefore only had 3 regiments, 2 companies of Jaeger, and 2 batteries available for the battle near Konin. From Zyklin advanced the vanguard of the Carabineers Regiment, also known as the 2nd Royal Saxon Heavy Cavalry, 1 battery of artillery, and 1 section of machine guns. Only after 3:30 in the afternoon did the Germans reach to the northeast the village of Beshezhno, which sits along the high road between Konin and Kolo, well after most of the enemy's cavalry had already fallen back to the east toward Kolo, and after that to the northeast. According to German reports, by 6 o'clock in the evening, about 500 prisoners from the Russian 172nd Infantry Regiment and 3 machine guns were captured. The Russian cavalry and artillery had managed to escape both sides of the Varta River, to the east and to the northeast. The Germans summarized the battle this way. On the 9th of November, General von Frommel succeeded in driving the Caucasian cavalry out of Konin with the 5th and 8th Cavalry Divisions, and to destroy an infantry battalion and to capture more than 500 prisoners. Meanwhile, on the right wing, the Austro-Hungarian 7th Cavalry Division and the Landsturm Brigade Dusan had been commanded to attack the Russian Cavalry Corps of General Novikov that controlled Kalish. The attempt to seize this opponent on the 10th of November by unifying all 3 divisions did not succeed. When the 2 German divisions were ready to attack on a single attack, the Austro-Hungarian division held their fire. General Novikov was able to evade to the southeastward. General Vladimir Soloshenko, who was temporary commander of the Russian Second Army Corps, summarized the battle this way. The next day, having approached Konin, the Caucasian Cavalry Division threw their reconnaissance and advance units across the bridge onto the left bank of the river, and behind them the battalion with machine guns, while leaving the battery on the right bank. Intelligence discovered the movements of large German cavalry forces from the south of Turek. The head of the division decides to accept the battle, for which he orders the battalion of the leader regiment with machine guns to occupy the edge of the forest that is southwest of Konin, and to deploy their regiments left and right. The battery commander, in a vain search for an observation post and position, detained the battery on the right bank. At this time, the German cavalry puts forward its howitzers, and a strong fire opens at the edge of the battalion, and the battle formation unfolds attacking the bridge, thus covering the Caucasian Cavalry Division from both flanks, threatening to cut it off from the bridge, and forces it to withdraw. The cavalry leaves, and the whole burden of the battle falls on the battalion, which, under heavy fire from German howitzer batteries and the onslaught of the cavalry, goes to the bridge, losing its machine guns and sustaining significant losses. The enemy did not force the bridge, and further retreat passed safely. Such is the information that we received from the west, which surprised us somewhat, since we did not expect the appearance of the enemy cavalry on the left bank of the Varta near Kolo and Konin, from the side of Turek, since we thought that our cavalry corps of Novikov was there. So, what do we make of this? Even though this battle barely merited a mention in the overall history of the war, I think there's still quite a lot going on here that people could appreciate. At the ground level, there was significant challenges due to the weather and the unexpected events which impacted the way the outcome was occurred. Also, organizationally, I think we got a little peek behind the curtain as far as the political issues that were affecting both the Russians and the Central Powers. But at the end of the day, I guess you'd have to admit both sides achieved most of what they set out to accomplish. Although in the case of the Russians, it was at a cost. So there you have it, the Battle of Konin, pretty much the last preliminary before the much larger Battle of Lodz. Also, just on a kind of more personal note, as far as some of the people you heard about, within days of the completion of the Battle of Konin, General Scheidemann had been relieved of his duties as the general in charge of the Russian Second Army, and he was sent over to the Turkish front into kind of a somewhat of a backwater. Also, a brief mention of Vincenti Grytkiewicz, who gave us the first-person account from inside the town of Konin. He survived the war. He then became a member, an early member of the newly created Polish army after the end of the First World War, and ultimately he ended up becoming the mayor of Konin. before he passed away, I think in the 70s. So just a kind of a personal note as far as some of the people that you've met here. Anyhow, I appreciate the time you've taken to listen to this, and I hope you found this slice of World War I history interesting. I would also be interested in getting your thoughts in the comments below. I hope to add some similar videos in the near future. Have a good day.